Hello, everyone. This is episode 34 of High Fantasy, member of the Broken Judges Network. So who's been productive since 33?
Oh, not me. I've been terrible. I've had so much shit going on. I just can't keep my head there's just too many resources draining the CPU right now.
I've probably got about 1,000 words done, maybe.
Cool.
I try to sit down every once in a while and get 500 words done, and I think I've done that a couple times since last time.
So we're assuming 500 a pop, and then at least 2 times. So that's where you get the 1,000 words from?
Roughly.
Okay.
That's roughly accurate.
I was thinking of my Victorian story and setting, and I got a little frustrated with how restricted it can be if I try to stick to historical accuracy. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to try to get the whole fantasy setting. I'll just put Victorian setting inside a fantasy world. So I basically have to start from scratch, although I'm happy it doesn't really affect my plot outline so far.
Well, that's good.
But it will, which is maybe took a gigantic step backwards.
You never know. But sometimes you have.
I'm mad. Yeah. Whatever gets the story ready to start.
I'm a little excited for all the, it essentially gives me freedom to do all sorts of crap. But then I have to figure out all of those details, and that's a bit intimidating. Because now I know how much of an undertaking that is. Because I've done it before. Several times.
I'm mad because I've made myself more excited for the plot of one of the future books in the series than I am for the first book.
Oh.
Well, then do the second book and just have the first book.
It's the fourth book.
Screw it. Hey, artwork started at episode 4. So.
Well, I'll just do what Sanderson did. I'll write the next book while trying to write the first book.
Maybe that works, but Sanderson says put all the interesting crap in the first book, because if you don't make the first book good, they won't get to the fourth book.
True.
Which is true, but sometimes you need that build-up. I don't know. Yeah. He suggests putting everything all up front in the first one.
That's kind of hard to do. And then you don't have anything to reveal later.
Right? Especially since he's a person who will have twists at the end of the second book. He's got nothing to complain about.
And his is also the one that takes 3 different series of books to get to the main point.
Yes. Yeah, he should shut up. Okay. Before we veer off, and this is a Sanderson episode, let's talk about the topic of this actual episode, which is, I have no fucking clue, because we deliberately made it no homework, no preparation. We're going to just go with it.
Well, it's sort of
throw out ideas.
Yeah. The idea was to come with something really obscure to see if we can't world build and make a book out of it.
And I think each 3 of us have one thing that we can use to throw into a pot and make a story.
Right. And who knows? Maybe we'll just combine all 3 of them and write a book.
I was going to say, because I had a setting. Alex had a plot character issue.
I have issues with a certain fantasy race, so I thought maybe that would be enough.
And Jacob had
a magic system. Well, not even a magic system. An idea of a way to do magic. And that's about it.
Okay.
So we already have a story here.
So who wants to go first?
Setting.
Oh, I was going to say alternate future Earth where the Roman Empire has conquered the entire Earth and is expanding into space.
Okay.
See,
my race is...
Where are you going to make the, what is Caesar never going to happen, or does he not get killed?
It was post-Caesar.
Okay, so where does...
Roman Empire.
Because there's so many places where if you change the history, the Roman Empire could have, survived. Does Christianity not take over? Does the East and West not split? Do they split and get back together?
No split, no schism, right? Because it has to be combined.
Yeah,
well, I'm saying you could have the schism and then reconsolidate. And then,
True.
And then you have the fun blips of history with anti-popes and crap. Those are fun.
Mm-hmm. Or, does whoever not ever cross the Alps? Like, like there's so
Hannibal.
many points. Yeah, there's so many points where you could say this is where we diverge.
I mean, you could do up until just about the fall of Rome, except they then reunite with the East and fight back the Mongol hordes and
Mongols, yeah, that's
Mhm.
the big
go back to. So yeah, we go all the way up until that point, and then the Romans actually win and don't lose and don't die off.
So is this like when
So-
in the future? Like how far? Like are they going into space in the 1960s? Or
Well, actually, that does beg the question of what history would have looked like if the Roman Empire hadn't. Would they have advanced technologically quicker?
well, if you can miss the Dark
feel-
Ages, right?
I feel like
True.
you have to assume that things would have advanced a bit quicker if the Mongols hadn't destroyed as much as they did, but Mongols never had like buildings. They had tents, whatever you're going to call them, and they were pushed back very easily by buildings. So maybe they wouldn't have affected things as much.
So we're somewhere in the near future with the Emperor of the Roman Empire ruling all of Earth. They've advanced into spacefaring technology and are beginning to probe the surrounding regions.
So is it like outside of the solar system probing? Like have we gotten to Pluto and colonized that
Or
shit
they-
yet? Or
They're trying to get to Mars.
yeah, like
I
where?
don't know. Are we
So,
going to start running into aliens?
so Colin, you're taking
fantasy
CK2
races.
and putting it in Stellaris, right? Yes. Okay. Yeah, you just continued from CK2 all the way up into Stellaris.
So CK2 into EU4 into
Mhm.
Stellaris.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is fun. So, if you're going to go with the structure of Stellaris and you already have your home system, it may not be all colonized, but you've got control over it, and then you're going outwards into the galaxy.
I've only played Stellaris once.
It's awesome. You should play a lot of it.
See, I mean, for this setting, because assuming the entire world is run by one central government, right? You would be able to pull in the smartest people and fund them in one central location instead of having multiple countries or multiple people working on the same thing at the same time apart from each other. So
Yeah.
maybe, and then you don't have like these major world wars that have all these destructive things. You don't have all sorts of that. So maybe we could have hit space by like the 1740s. So instead of colonizing America, we've been like putting people on the moon since for 400 years or something.
At the same time, all forms of colonization has like issues and resistance and like time having to be spent to make that stable, and without as much competition, well, like in the 50s in the Cold War, and basically the race to
Right.
a science superiority, if those didn't happen, maybe things would have been slower.
Right. That's the other thing is, have we run into a thing where, because war does advance technology, whether you like it or not, war advances technology like crazy.
Yeah. I mean, if Rome was still in power, maybe Napoleon didn't happen and logistical things that he accomplished didn't happen and everything stayed static for longer.
Right.
It could really be either or.
It could be, because they do say that there's some evidence of a working incandescent bulb from the library, the great library of
Alexandria?
Alexandria. They say there was like stuff for that then, and that set humanity back 1,000 years. So
Why did that have to burn?
So you could make up your alternate history of Rome succeeded because the Library of Alexandria didn't burn down.
yeah,
We had
could be.
flights much earlier and were able to have universities up and running much quicker.
And if you just really wanted to piss off like half the world, you just like have Jesus like be like, screw it, I'm just going to go be Roman now and like give allegiance to to Caesar. Like he got this demigod rolling around, like Darth Vader, like, but it's Jesus.
Because like 40K has the ridiculously sci-fi version of basically the God Emperor is kind of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, they're Romanesque, German-esque too. It's weird.
But then they've got the whole Space Marine chapter that's dedicated to looking like the Romans.
Mm-hmm. With multiple sets of organs.
Yeah. Well, there's one specific chapter of Space Marines that dress in all like Roman style armor.
See,
they carry that quite literally.
Part of me, like, just thinking about this, imagines those civilization campaigns where you get like fully automated weapons and like 1000 BC. So you're rolling in with tanks and everyone else still has like a horseback and shit. Or I mean, that's another way you could do it, is somebody in Rome figured out one technology that was able to take over the world because it was so advanced. Like maybe they figured out, bullets first or something. Or airplanes or whatever. Because if you had like an airplane in, 0 BC or whatever, you would pretty much rule the universe.
Oh God, I was just reading, there's a chapter in the Great Hunt, the second Real-Time book, where Rand is in like this weird parallel could-be world. And one of like the weird things he sees are these trails in the sky that are like extremely straight cloud lines. And it's like, are they jets? Like, what's going on here? He never actually goes back and explains what the hell that was. It's just like, oh, there's jet shells in the sky for some reason.
Okay. 14 books later, they never get an answer.
No. Well, I mean, it is supposed to take place in a Earth in a future or past, but like there's references to things because the wheel of time is cyclical and
okay.
But like he just happened to run into a world where there was jets flying overhead, maybe. Except everyone was dead. It really made no sense. But yeah, aircraft would make a big difference in going against primitive societies.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they'd probably just worship you as soon as they saw you.
That's
like World War I style, like barely even airplanes.
But that's a thing that happens in the New Guinea, Papua New Guinea. The tribes, they don't understand what an airplane is, but they know it's a thing that brings supplies, and they see it happening. It has a specific name, and I don't remember it, but as soon as they saw planes, they started worshiping them.
Well, I mean, I can kind of see why.
Yeah.
So now I'm picturing, rather than us being visited by aliens, it's the Roman Empire in space is visiting primitive civilizations on other planets, and
the Roman Empire from the moon.
But like we always picture aliens coming and visiting us and being super high tech and stuff.
No, Caesar was an alien.
I don't remember the name of the movie, but there's this movie out there where it's set in present day, but like the Nazis put a base on the dark side of the moon and have been hanging out for like 70 years and then come back to take over the earth. It's really funny and actually kind of good, but yeah, it's just kind of what made me think.
Wolfenstein games, you go to the moon to fight Nazis. I never made it far enough, but I think you do.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Iron Sky, that's what it is.
Nazis come back from the moon. That would suck. So, really, how much can you get done on the moon?
Who's to say? Okay, so yeah, my idea for a magic system thingy In my head, it's for an urban fantasy book, but I have no idea for the setting. So the idea is that, um, especially structures, buildings and that kind of stuff, they absorb the energies around them. So if it's a house, a home, somewhere where a family resides, it tends to draw more positive energies. And if it's, something else that draws more negative energies, and these wizards can essentially reach into the ether of these structures and pull out magic and use it. So, in a place where there aren't many structures, the magic would be less unless it's been a really traumatic event there, like a battleground or something. So, I mean, that would give you some really interesting reasons as to why things tend to happen around cities and people gravitate to that. Would also give you a way to like take power away from people. You put them out in like the wilderness where there's nothing to draw from, so they're just human again or whatever. So that's all I have, but it's an interesting idea. So it's sort of why buildings that aren't used sort of decay, even if they're up. Even if someone is keeping them up, if people aren't living in it, it kind of dies. The building itself kind of dies. So I don't know the best way to use it, but that's my idea for magic.
So it's a futuristic urban fantasy story set in a sprawling, super advanced Rome. That works.
That works.
Oh.
Yeah.
Roman aqueducts of energy. It's dumb shit.
The Roman aqueducts are now like channeling magic between buildings.
Mm-hmm.
That could work.
Okay, here's my thing. I dislike the way gnomes are usually presented in fantasy because they are either guarded gnomes and nothing is done with them, or they're crazy mad scientists and that's it. I think gnomes should be presented with complexity. Not that I really know what that should be because I don't particularly like them. I just got irritated with the fact that they're always simplistic.
So a gnome in downtown Rome has to stop someone from channeling the building magic into something problematic.
Or a gnome who's a bad wizard starts to like channel magic in a bad way.
The gnome is the problem.
What if gnomes are Roman? Like all of the Romans are just gnomes. Everyone's a gnome.
Gnome and Roman.
Caesar was a gnome.
Did you just want to say that?
That's you. It was right there.
Why?
It was right there. It was right there.
But if everyone's a gnome, no one's a gnome.
Except for aliens.
Where is the story going?
We didn't have like forethought put into this.
Yeah, we didn't even know we were combining the stories till we got here. So,
and then we got like, oh, we each have a piece of a story. Does not work together, really, but okay.
Well. Yeah, the gnomes was kind of a little field.
Sorry.
So with the magic, in theory, there would be a finite amount that can, be regenerated as things live there.
It doesn't necessarily, not a finite amount of like, there's only a limited amount in the world if it's just being generated by people's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if it's generated by people, it kind of seems like they could do like what Stormfront bad guy was doing. It was like causing emotions in people to get energy out of it.
I forgot how
factory farming people's emotions for energy. Like
so you just pile people in buildings and make them feel things so that the building has good magic to it?
Or think of Rick and Morty car batteries.
Yeah, I was about to go there. Yeah. Oh man, that creates this entire
Which one was that?
Supply and demand episode. The one where Rick is like he creates a mini universe of Power's car, and it's running out of power because they created a mini universe to power their society. It's like slavery.
Mm-hmm.
More steps. Season 2.
It's the one with Colbert in it.
I'm pretty sure it's season 2. I mean, there's only 3
Hey,
seasons,
no.
so I got a good chance here.
Yeah, I didn't watch season 3, and I'm not remembering this one, but maybe I just forgot about it.
It was a pretty good one because like dealing with the fact that Rick's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Like of all of the war crimes a person can be charged with, he pretty much did all of them.
It's like slavery, but with more steps.
Mm-hmm. La-dee-da. Someone went to university.
I don't remember which episode.
Someone went to the Library of Alexandria.
Somewhere in season 2.
Yeah. I think it's episode 2, Morty Night Run.
It's I just had it up. Where did it go? Season 2, episode 6. The Ricks must be crazy.
Yep, there it is. Yeah, that universe was then trying to create a sub-universe. It was like layers upon layers.
So there's a mini-verse, a microverse, and then a teeny-verse.
Right.
And then probably on and on and on. But see, if we're going to really try to combine these ideas, it seems kind of fun if gnomes are like the power output for society doing crazy things with energies and aqueducts or whatever.
But aren't they now just the stereotypical gnomes again?
Well, I think that's a good way of kind of highlighting a similarity, but you could make them unwilling to do it. Like they're slave labor. They could be put on emotional treadmills or something because they're not human. Matter. I don't know. I don't like.
So we have
strong
speciesism.
Highlight. Yeah, I don't like speciesism to deal with, but like, so it's so far a simple thing to do to gnomes to make them more interesting.
Enslave them.
Yeah,
that's such an Alex thing to do.
But it's sympathetic.
So is the hero a gnome who uprises? Is it like what kind of thing is like? Where's the tension? And or is it one of those things where we just know it's happening and know it's terrible, but it's not really the main part of the book?
I'm okay with that.
Like the reader sees it and they expect it to be like a main thing in the book, but you just let it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, sucks for the gnomes, but that's the way it is.
And maybe, or well, you could also pull from that that Black Mirror episode with like all the TV and stuff, to where like they're on the bikes and they earn credits, and you know that.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that was a prison.
Yeah, pretty sure it was too. But you could do something like that to where like they could potentially air quotes earn their freedom if they experience enough. So you have these gnomes who are like pushing themselves farther and farther into like different emotional states to try and generate more power or more magic, and it ends up driving them crazy. And so you have the death ball type TV shows from like the 80s where all those movies were popular. Like it was like Death Race, and there's a Schwarzenegger movie. I don't remember which one it was.
I thought that was the Death Race one.
No, I don't think that. I think that was different.
I know Schwarzenegger was in like a movie in a futuristic competition. He had to survive because a bunch of people were coming to kill a bunch of other people.
Right. Well, I mean, there's a whole genre of movies where like if you survive long enough, you get your freedom or something like that. Huh?
Yeah, that one. That one. It was
Running Man. I remember that movie. That movie was ridiculous.
I barely remember it, but I know it existed. So if you take like a Black Mirror turn, I was wondering if like we're trying to manufacture emotions out of people and they're doing Space Marine training.
And they're accidentally going to spawn Cthulhu if they overdo it. Just to put Lovecraft in here.
Okay. Maybe it's sending out a signal out into space to outsiders.
Space gnomes.
Who are actually 10 feet tall.
Who come to save their enslaved counterparts.
They are gnomes on their planet. The people there are 100 feet tall.
So how tall are these Romans?
No idea. Are the Romans not gnomes anymore?
I don't know.
So are we still using Romans? We don't know. But this works because I actually started listening to Starship Troopers here this week. So we have enslaved gnomes who are being used to manufacture feelings that somehow is being harnessed by some magic users and transported to other places.
You could do something like terrible things have to be done to create energy, but the energy allows for a bunch of good things to happen.
How do they power their spaceships and stuff with this?
Yeah,
Could
like
be.
Isn't that something to warp?
Oh god, the warp in 40K.
I don't remember a whole lot of the details of it, but maybe.
You have to have a psychic guy on board who kind of tears a hole into null space, and you go into it.
Maybe gnomes are the only ones who can do it, so the Romans have to utilize them.
Well, yeah, that's just 40K. Like, you're pretty much they're just kind of slaves. They're really respected, but they don't really.
They're also strapped to chairs to like die for thousands and thousands of years.
Well, yeah, warp travel can go really, really wrong, really fast. And usually it starts with the guy who's channeling it, and he gets possessed by a demon and explodes, and things go wrong.
Ooh. In all this is to set up some like a story on a ship. Like the main story takes place on like some ship on the edge of the solar system, very Event Horizon type thing. Congratulations, we're writing a horror novel.
Lovecraftian? Are we going that far?
Well,
could be. Well, here's an idea. We could sort of combine it with Star Trek. So instead of like getting warp drive with like matter and anytime matter, like there's a way to like push light and dark magic together that causes an explosion, like a metaphysical explosion that can be harnessed to power engines. And that's why we have to have all these different emotions, because we use it to fuel our cars, so to speak.
So some slaves get tortured and some slaves get thrown in orgies, and they make
they get the best things ever. They get to live the ultimate life.
I mean,
just collide into explosion.
You can try to balance out like, okay, so evil people get tortured, good people get rewarded, and try to like, it's not so bad,
But they're still enslaved gnomes, right?
I don't know.
Or maybe that's what they do to the prison population.
Exactly. It's like, Black Mirror in fantasy gnome land. It's go get tortured. Like White Bear.
But the thing you would have
like White Bear.
You would have to sell it as part of like, you were chosen to suffer for God or something. It'd have to be that kind of thing, so people would actually volunteer to suffer because it was godly.
Or if you just like, if you take someone who's convicted, like a serial killer, and that person is just going to be tortured forever as their punishment, White Bear episode, Black Mirror like, and then you have someone who gets to have fun all the time, and then they just power the ship. And so they're just there as people with their functions.
Oh, so you're actually like using, like, you have these two people in the engine room that are funneling. Oh, that could be weird.
It's like the experience machine thought problem. but malicious, sort of, to get a ship moving so you can take over the galaxy. Or maybe fight Cthulhu. If you want to keep it to one ship, this is how you can have all those elements represented.
Yeah. And then something breaks and these like light and dark emotions start spreading through the ship. Or there's some kind of radiation that they didn't know about from the magic that starts influencing the people on the ship.
I was kind of thinking, what if like you've got a rebellious anarchist crazy person, something of that line, and then they wake up the people who are powering the ship. And so it's just kind of floating listlessly. And they have to subdue the people and get them back in.
Ooh, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting moral questions there. And then of course, you know, the person on, like, the bad person who was, you know, powering the engine was like the worst person ever. So he's got all these like magic skills and he's murdering people, going crazy.
Yeah, it'd be good for the bad punished prisoner person to be genuinely evil, to make that, and then but you have to force someone to be in an experience machine.
Right, and that would be hard. So they realize that this guy or person is a really cool gnome, and they got like
Well,
and he doesn't want to go back because he's stuck, and he realizes his life is a lie.
yeah, I mean, if whenever you tell someone the experience machine idea of just like go into a machine and everything is perfect and as you want, your life gets to play out exactly as you want, would you do it? People usually say no, and they're not often able to explain why. So if they have to, like, the evil person belongs in the evil punishment chamber, okay, but putting someone who's not evil into a happy place still makes people feel sick.
Yeah. And so you have these two people. Well, then what you could have is the evil guy and the guy you're trying to shove in the happy engine, like team up to like murder everyone on the ship.
A lot of moral things, you know, people go crazy when locked in a room. Isolation is a terrible thing, and then if you're just like still the idea of like one ship out into space, limited number of people going crazy.
It would have to be a bigger ship just to make this work. It can't be like,
how big? Like,
I mean,
I wouldn't say more than 20 people. Depending.
I was thinking more like, you know, Star Trek Enterprise kind of level. You know, 400 or 500 people.
Is one person in each box enough for something as big as the Enterprise?
Sure. It can be. I mean, it's our story. We can do whatever the fuck we want.
Yes, it seems not enough.
Well, that's how like powerful these emotions are. This like emotion magic.
Maybe. I was thinking kind of a lot like the Event Horizon size ship. Those people.
Well, I was thinking like if you make it, you need it to be a bigger ship so you can have that cat and mouse chase kind of feel for the book. I think that would be able to have the most tension, and so you got to have places for them to hide, essentially. And then like a holodeck. Colin, we can't hear you if you're trying to talk. It says you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
My microphone disconnected for a second. It must have muted me. So how long of a journey? Like, is this a long-term trip they're on?
I mean, they have to be far enough away from help that it can't be easily obtained, right? Because
is this ship like big enough to have families on it?
So that's what I was thinking. I was thinking like the Enterprise, you know.
But you could have a large ship. Oh, as for example, the Alien movie, they had 8 people out of a gigantic ship because it was a mining ship. So, and they were still able to do the cat and mouse thing. If it was
a colonizing ship, so it's got a bunch of families on board to go somewhere and drop them off.
The thing, if you have a small crew, you can meet everyone on the crew. So that
yes,
true.
So if anyone dies, it hurts. But if you have a lot of families and stuff, and say like the murdery dude just decides to kill the entire daycare, that would hit pretty hard too.
Not the younglings.
Order 66.
I'm surprised he just didn't go for the full Order 666. With pet peeves. Younglings. Ugh. Though apparently Robert Jordan liked the word younglings too.
Oh.
It's kind of annoying.
Wait, did you block that out the first time you read it?
Apparently.
So are the braid tuggings and skirt swishing more or less aggravating than you remember?
I don't even remember more than like one or two so far. But we haven't really had the super trio of girls get together yet, so there's 14 books. It's plenty of time.
They haven't been passive aggressive yet?
No, not yet. We've had plenty of bats, and yeah, there's like scenes when they just take bats. Is
this Wheel of Time?
Yeah.
I gotta read these books.
It's a great series that he does not do women well sometimes. And sometimes he just like, there's some scenes that are just really mundane and not necessary. And there's some scenes that are great.
So I think at this point in our story, it has to be at least 6 months out from any kind of like they're on the. I think they have to be like getting near or past Pluto. Like they're supposed to be the first ship to make it to Alpha Centauri.
Okay. So now we got. This is a groundbreaking exploratory mission.
And Wild Cthulhu's out in space are the reason that we don't leave the solar system. Is that it?
Wild Cthulhu's in space.
But if it's like the first, do you guys see Pandorum? Okay, it was pretty good. It was a few years old. Dennis Quaid was in it, and basically it was like a colony ship. Everyone was asleep, and then it was sent off into space. And it basically, some people were awake. They always had like a crew in like controlling what was going on, of maybe 20 people, and then they would sleep, and then they'd wake up the next crew, essentially. At some point, that system got messed up, and bad things happened in the rest of the ship, and people would just slowly wake up and realize things were happening bad. It was a really good horror story, basically. You could have a ton of people on a ship and only focus on a few characters if only a few of them are awake, but everyone else is still in danger.
You get that? I mean, that's a very 2001 kind of thing.
Yeah, so they've got a bunch of families in stasis, basically, and the crew is the ones bringing them out there.
And this would be a good reason as to why the most evil person. This is why Hitler is essentially like one of the warp nacelles, because they have to have someone so evil that they can power ship that far.
So they literally had to get Hitler.
Maybe not Hitler himself, but you know what I mean. Well, like someone like super evil.
Because otherwise, they wouldn't have enough energy to get there.
They don't need to have an evil person. They just need a person to torture, and they want to make it an evil person because then it's worth it.
Right, but my thought was like the torture like brings out the evil magic, or maybe it is they need an evil person. So they can put them in their own fantasy chamber so they can do evil things and siphon off that really evil magic.
So it's not that they need torture, pain, emotion. They need evil.
Evil, yes.
So you need a Michael in a happy, do good things, and you need an evil person being evil.
Yeah.
Instead of happy feelings and torture feelings.
Michael and Nicodemus in the room.
Essentially, yeah.
I kind of like the moral questions that go on more with the torture and experience machine things instead of.
So if you
Or
enslave
what you
the
could
goodest
do.
person on Earth, just to put him in a room with the evil person so that you can power a spaceship, that's questionably immoral.
Different.
It is different. But what you could do is you could, if you wanted to have this really weird dynamic, is so you have this evil person doing evil things, right? This good person doing good things, and they're both in this virtual world. Well, what if you hit them against each other in the virtual world? And so they're actually like, when they wake up, they know who the other person is. So it's like, oh, I've been trying to kill you for 2,000 years. Or something like that.
I don't like that because it adds a layer that is unnecessary.
And that's why we're throwing out ideas.
Yeah, but like I hope that explains it. It's just that them hating each other doesn't need to be there. Granted, nothing needs to be there. It's a fantasy story, so who gives a fuck? But I think it doesn't add anything more. But I like the idea of like you need to go be tortured or something for the rest of your life for everyone else to survive. Even if you're going to enjoy it, you have to give up your life. And the idea of having to force someone into it.
So does the main conflict in the story, is that just like survival? Is that what it ends up becoming?
Sort of.
Do we have like some rando who's the main character, like, space janitor, like chilling out, like somehow becomes like the most important person on this ship?
I'm trying to think of what Kylo Ren's nickname was when he was the janitor.
Right. That was good. Was that College Humor?
That was great. Might have been. Oh, that was just fantastic, though.
Janitor might not be a bad person as a main character.
So what happens if the evil person gets killed and they need someone to do something super evil just to have someone there to be able to power their ship again?
Good moral question.
Like, can you go into that room and kill a bunch of children so you can go power our spaceship to get us home?
Ooh, and then you have to decide which one.
So who here wants to be evil?
And who's the evil one? The one who decides who dies or the one doing the killing?
Seriously, Janitor's a pretty good character.
Yeah, right. Like he's just like some schmo.
Well, I mean, there's that, but they also have the implicit possibility of real competence of like, I know how to get into that room on this ship because I know
right. They know the entire ship.
Maintenance, and it's like regular person plus real competence without fantastical explanations that are unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. So it's Space Quest meets Romans in Space meets Dresden Files.
Gnomes.
Roger. And plus gnomes.
Somehow, gnomes.
Where are the gnomes in this now?
Maybe everyone is just intermixed. Like some characters are gnomes, some characters aren't.
Well,
it's just
if
regular
you
people.
could have like Roman Empire meets sort of Dungeons and Dragons races, you could just have like, Dragonborns and stuff to give flavor.
Yeah.
So like you got your gnomes, you got your elves, and they're all just chilling out. And like the bad guy is like some like 3-foot tall tiefling that just like murders everyone and rapes them or something. I don't know.
Maybe the janitor is a gnome because he can fit into smaller vents and stuff to clean them.
There you go.
That works. Makes sense. I can't help but feel weird because I don't know if you saw that Vern Troyer passed away yesterday.
Oh, don't make me feel bad.
But now you're just talking about gnomes and I feel weird.
Mm.
I'm going to be a terrible person and go, who?
Mini-Me.
Huh?
In Austin Powers, Mini-Me.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I liked him. Oh, he would have been perfect to play it in our movie when we finish writing the book and get it cast as a movie.
And Colin's going straight to hell. So, more importantly, what are we going to call this thing? We have to have a catchy title.
We have to have. I can't name things at all.
I've come up with one good title ever, and that's about it. Okay. Actually, no, before the title, how does this end? So the conflict is they're trying to survive. You have evil person, literally Hitler running around the ship killing fuckers. You have this good guy who we have to get back into his thing. Oh, another thing you could do, especially for the good guy, is you maybe either some genetic component or they have to be altered in some way to be used as fuel.
So there's a very limited ability of who can do it.
Right. So there can only be certain people who can do it, or maybe there's something about like the altering where if you don't do it, you die quickly, or it would make it easier because then you would have to convince this, good person to go back in, even though they realize they're living a lie.
Yeah. So we have bad guy you need to subdue and shove into his box. Good guy you need to heartbreakingly feel sorry for and convince him to get into his box.
Right.
And then you have Cthulhu to fight using their life forces.
Sure, but what's it like? Is the janitor there to like help find the people? Like, is that his thing, or does he
can,
or is
find
he
the
like?
people?
Well, see, I was thinking maybe he's harboring the happy person, the happy warp engine to.
Because he's having a moral quandary about whether or not to send him back.
Right, and yeah, so
let's say that janitor is the only person awake for a little while. Something interrupts power fluctuations and bad guy wakes up and he starts running around. So janitor needs to wake other people up to go deal with that, but they're kind of clueless on how like the ship works, and then they start fighting with each other because they just got woken up from a 1,000-year nap and they're cranky.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't like the whole like empty ship idea. I think it needs to have some life to it.
A crew.
Yeah, you need at least a few people who are there. Like,
it depends. I mean, so it's what, 4 light years away from Alpha Centauri, and how long would it actually take a ship that we could build in the next 100 years to get there?
No,
and
but
then
we have
hopefully
super
people
technology
survive.
because of the Romans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been 6 months, and they're looking at another 6 months to get there.
Yeah, sure, that works.
And hold on, this is the first expedition we have to colonize Alpha Centauri, and it only takes a year?
No, it's just the first time we built a ship big enough to get there. So it's just like, it's not maybe it's not a colony ship, maybe it's just like a science team.
Okay, so no more families.
Maybe.
Or maybe some families.
Well, it's like... Well, it could be like the Enterprise, right? Like they just let the families go with them so they're not bored.
Bored.
I don't.
Sorry, I just need to laugh about that. Okay. Okay, so crew and science people, but if you bump up the length of the space travel to a few years, it makes sense for people to be asleep. And then you can wake people up as needed.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but then there's a whole gotta catch certain people up to speed, and I don't know. I don't like the whole idea of waking.
You can skip over. Well,
we can skip the waking people up and just have the crew and.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I'd like to, it would be fun if you have a haughty Roman noble person who's annoying. Of I have to wake up the emperor person.
I was going to say maybe the bad person does something to the living quarters and they have to wake up all the families and get them somewhere else so that they can protect them.
Could
So now
do
you get a
that.
bunch of woken up families who are all grouchy and, hey, I'm a Roman noble on this trip, and how dare you wake me up? And
Yeah, we're
Yeah, that's good conflict. I think I like that. And then they need to convince everyone to go back into stasis, I would assume, because they're causing trouble. Granted, it may not be possible to put them back into stasis.
and so eventually, like the end of the story, we have to shove the janitor and make his life like he's got to go back in one of the tubes, right? I mean, that's pretty much how the story has to end. Like he has to sacrifice
guy.
his life to make sure this mission succeeds.
so him having the moral quandary over whether or not to put the good guy means he's actually the really good guy.
Right. So he has this moral quandary, and like maybe he's, personally he's against doing this, but he and then he has to go in. Like you essentially kill off the protagonist at the end by shoving him in a tube.
And I can just see like the door closing behind him and the story ending.
Yeah, it's like super sad, and no one cares because he's a gnome janitor, and no one cares about gnomes. Like he doesn't even get remembered in the history books. It's just this: he saves everyone's life, and no one cares.
So we are going the speciesist route.
Sure.
So you're saying, to be clear, good guy has to go back into the box because he's got that genetic thing but then the janitor just gets forgotten about.
Well, no, what I was saying is like
the janitor has to go in.
The janitor, so maybe so the evil guy kills the good engine guy, and the janitor somehow can fit in to the good engine.
I'm sure he could fit in. He's a freaking gnome.
I mean, like he's got the genetic thing too, or something.
I like the idea if the janitor doesn't have the genetic thing, because like he's really just a normal person. He's not special. It's something that I kind of gravitated towards, and the heartbreaking moment of having to convince a good person to give up his life.
That could be pretty rough.
Right.
Hadn't the good guy already decided that in the first place?
Maybe not. What if he was,
drugged and just thrown in there?
Matrix born, as in a tube and energy siphoned off. Matrix.
Wasn't there a whole thing about how completely inefficient that would be for a robot society to do?
Yes, but they did it that way because people didn't understand the idea that they just needed the processing power of human brains. So they made it batteries because people are more able to grasp that.
Yeah. Why?
Because people didn't, especially at that point, the mass amount of people probably didn't understand what a CPU was or how it works. And I still don't, so who cares?
But just tell us it works that way and let us accept it, even if we don't get it.
There are some things that people just draw the line of, like, no, that's ridiculous, even if it's realistic.
Okay, so I think I have the ending of this book.
I think the ending should be crash landing on Alpha Centauri.
Okay, maybe. So here's my idea.
That's the epilogue.
So, janitor and good engine person, they... I don't know what else to call them.
I like how it's not the engineer, it's just the person who is the engineer.
Right, exactly. So they have this and you all probably shoot this down, but there's some kind of romance there. And at the end, it's the janitor convincing this person they've fallen in love with to go back and never see them again.
So the good person is a woman?
It doesn't have to be.
Possibly.
Yeah, they could be.
The janitor,
human gnome homoerotic.
I was going to say, well, now we got a love story between species.
Break all the boundaries.
Hey, we get picked up at a heartbeat if we did that. What's sad is you all know it's true.
So it's like Brokeback Mountain with a gnome and a guy, and they're
And a wild Cthulhu.
Where is Cthulhu in this story?
He's
They
like
could be Cthulhu
He's just
Rangers.
outside on the window.
watching. I mean,
we should have romance, though. It's always got to be crappy. Usually it's a crappy romance subplot, but
Right, but if you have the romance, it actually makes the guy going, well, whatever, the gnome going back in
even worse.
as it's heartbreaking because you would have to have the janitor convince them to do it. Like, you could have this whole thing about how, even in this perfect pleasure, they didn't get love right, and so the gnome has fallen in love and doesn't want to give it up even for this life of bliss because it's not pure love or some bullshit like that.
It's just kind of the details, but I thought about this experience machine problem a lot, and I really think that the thing that people dislike is they really actually want their things to be real.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want a fake version of some love. They want the real version, and that is the part that they're never willing to give up. So
right.
Even though he's going to have something pleasurable, he's still going to, at least for the moment when he's getting back in, going to know it's going to be fake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a heartbreak.
And that's literally what I just read in Wheel of Time. That testing to be a witch lady, they have to face their 3 biggest fears. And apparently her worst fear is literally her perfect life.
Because it's fake?
Yeah. She actually doesn't even know. Maybe she could have just stayed there and been happily married forever. But she knew it wasn't really real. So she had to walk away.
Why not really real?
Because it was some machine that was showing her.
Oh, okay.
But they did tell her, some people have just never come out. So maybe she could have just lived it. But,
people are drawn to all of the good things being real. They don't want the fake version. It's the same idea that not wanting to be betrayed about how the world works, and at least in my opinion.
Okay, for the good engine, why they use gnomes is because gnomes are the only thing
thought
they
of that person
clone.
as being human.
I thought the gnome was the janitor. And
The gnome was the janitor.
The gnome's the janitor.
Because we have a cross-species romance tale here, right?
Yeah, come on. This is how we get sold. This is how we make, a movie.
It would probably be such a terrible movie.
Hey, when we're millionaires, you won't care.
Yeah, I'll just cringe all the way to the bank, man.
In 3 years, we're saying at some panel, come on, we're just gonna be we're sorry. It's a shitty book, but we made a lot of money, so we don't care.
You can actually go back and watch the podcast where we literally just talked about making sure this book gets sold. Now we're selling out our principles.
Principles?
What principles?
What are these principles you speak of? Okay, so we have the ending. The ending is these.
Okay, the way I lay it out,
cross-species relationship. One of them is convincing the other to go back.
Yes, and then once both engines are working, they have to fight a Cthulhu and crash land on Alpha Centauri. That's the way I lay it out.
Okay.
How do you fight a Cthulhu?
Good question. Escape? Maybe they have to escape the Cthulhu fast enough, and that's why it's a crash landing, because they couldn't do it controlled.
So when does the gnome sacrifice himself?
Who says the gnome has to sacrifice himself?
He
Maybe he just has to live with the guilt.
Did. Oh.
No, he sacrifices his
love.
His self by convincing his only love to go back. And maybe we make something up about how gnomes can only truly love once, and they have this whole thing about what the fuck? That's why you make it even better. So we have this word for like this special kind of love this gnome has for this human, like the Smizmar from Futurama, you know?
I mean, let's say that Crash Landing or Escape from Cthulhu was dire enough and desperate enough that engines, both of them, died.
So they had to push them past human capability until they got them going fast enough to get away, but it would kill them both.
And Janitor has to help, colonize Alpha Centauri. And
lovelessly having sex.
Basically just live the rest of his life alone and heartbroken.
Actually, that's actually a really good end, because what you do is like this Cthulhu space being like starts eating the ship, and the only way to get away is to get them both back in and like punch it, and it kills them. And so it's like he's not only convincing his truest of true loves to get back in. It's either to get back in,
it's not just get back in. It's get back in and die.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that works.
It's actually a pretty good ending. For all the ridiculous shit we went through to get this, it's actually not that bad. It only took about an hour.
Precisely what we needed.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we still don't have a title.
We
need the title.
It's got to be something like Split Cell, or something to deal with the duality of the whole thing.
Duality of gnomes and humans.
Split decisions. There you go. That's it.
What was it?
Split decisions.
Split decisions.
That's it. It's perfect. We're done. Peace out. Drop the mic. Let's just write 100,000 words and be millionaires. We're done. We done. We did it.
I'm kind of impressed with ourselves, honestly.
And this, dear listeners, is why they say ideas are cheap.
Yep. You have to write everything.
I know, we just have an idea, but we're never going to write it.
Still kind of impressed. Can't really get over it.
I didn't think we'd make it here.
Me neither. We had no preparation, no expectations of what was going to happen. We thought it was going to be a disaster.
Wildly different ideas.
And we are actually at 61 minutes. So if we want to sign off and call it a day, we can.
You said, Jacob, that like the ones that we have the least preparation for turn out to be the best. And I have to say, you're probably right.
So next week, no topic. Let's just go. Or next podcast.
We'll have a topic next time. Maybe an interview if we can schedule somebody. I'm tired of thinking so much.
Sanderson, sorry we made fun of you, but
please come on the show and run it.
Maybe we won't break down crying and laughing next time.
Well, you can check us out at brokenjars.xyz. Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/brokenjars to help fund more episodes like this, apparently. You can find me at Jacob Ingles on Twitter. Check out our other shows, the Dresden Files podcast, Great Scott, my new show, Sim Talk, if you're into simulation modeling. Broken Jars Broadcasting at gmail.com if you want to email us and tell us how terrible this episode was, which please email us and tell us about this episode because I would love to hear y'all's reaction to it.
Yeah. Tell us that we were gnome racist or something. Speciesist.
Yeah. So we'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye.